we have to just be careful of just a few overall factors in life in terms of our metrics. Our cardiovascular disease, our blood pressure and stroke, our type 2 diabetes, and cancer. That is what we continue to control for. And a 10-hour eating window is one of those things that dramatically help. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Great to have you here today, episode 2672 of the Cabral Concept. To check out this show, as well as I'll link up to the previous intermittent fasting podcast shows, head on over to stephencabral.com/2672. You're not going to want to miss the research on the 10-hour time-restricted eating window. This is really impressive. One of the reasons why this study jumped out at me, remember, there are thousands of studies promoting intermittent fasting. The difference with the intermittent fasting podcast that I do under the Cabral Concept umbrella is that I give you the unbiased look at it, meaning like I tell you the detriments of the wrong type of fasting and fasting for too long. And then I give you all the benefits of intermittent fasting because again, intermittent fasting is one of the half dozen to maybe dozen things maximum that you can do to reduce all-cause mortality, meaning like dying from any reason, and extending lifespan. Like so, improve health span, improve lifespan. Intermittent fasting is one of them. You do it too much, you go too far, then it works in reverse and you actually increase all-cause mortality, all reasons for death, especially cardiovascular, et cetera. So we've found though, and this is the difference. So I have so many colleagues that are PhDs. I might have more colleagues that are PhDs than practitioners or clinicians. So a clinician is basically someone that is doing the work with the clients and the patients in the actual real world, and the PhDs are doing the research on everything that needs to be done in the lab. And some crossover, there are a few, but not a ton. And we need both. But the interesting thing is like sometimes you, and I would say often, you arrive at it in the real world first. And then what you do is you test it through, again, brilliant PhDs in a lab or with a clinical study or however it's run. And so the funny thing is that we've been doing intermittent fasting for a long time. I mean, we're talking 20 years. But we never arrived on like the specific window until maybe a decade ago. And that might seem like a long time, but it's really not. That was, right around 2010, 2011, when I was really starting to take off with my integrative health and functional medicine practice. And what we realized, so we had to look at it like this. Intermittent fasting is 12 hours, okay? And intermittent fasting didn't become a big thing until about 2017. And the reason why I say that is like that the research came out that it could actually destroy cancer cells and improve so much in around 2016, but no one really got wind of it for like another year later. Having said that, in a practice, you could see that it was clearly working. Like we know it works for exercise in practice, we know it works for diet, et cetera. But what we found was that it needed to be at least 12 hours. That's what the research had already said. So we said, okay, but it didn't matter. Like you could stop at 10 at night and just not eat till 10 in the morning. So like that was an intermittent fast. But we realized like that wasn't working with everybody's schedule. And then they would end up just over drinking on coffee in the morning and things that weren't necessarily healthy. So we said, okay, we need to back up that window. So we backed up the window and we said, okay, and we didn't have all the fancy trackers, right? Back in like the 2007, 2008 when I really started to get into this. So what we realized was just basically trial and error. When people worked or they ate more hours, they stopped eating more hours before they went to bed, they were getting better sleep. Oh, okay. That took a while because again, there's no biometric trackers really. I had one of like the first sleep watches that we used to track, but it was so rudimentary. To be honest, it was super rudimentary. It just basically told you how many wakes during the night, those types of things. Didn't do HRV, didn't do any of that. So we started just backing up people's meals and we said, okay, we want you to stop eating by like 7 or 8 o'clock. And so we did that. And then we say, okay, then we can eat again then at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. And that seemed to work really well too because it eliminated snacking before bed. Okay, so that was helpful. But then we realized, okay, some people would actually extend the fast. So they would stop eating at 7 and then they wouldn't eat till 9 in the morning. Okay, so now we're at how many hours? 14 hours. And that seemed to be working really well. And so what we essentially and ultimately ended on is stopping eating around 5 to 6 p.m. at night if you want the maximum, like for life extension. And don't eat again until about 8 in the morning to somewhere around there, 8 to 9. Depends on when you wake up, a couple hours after you wake up. And that was 14 hours. That's what it seems to be. Like almost, if you were to give a blanket statement, I can tell you right now, as what we've now found out to be more safe, that seems to be it. It's not that 16 isn't amazing. It's not that 12 isn't great. It's just that when you start to move more towards 18 to 20 hours, there can be, not in the short term, long-term detrimental health issues. There's also can be micronutrient deficiencies, not enough meals, etc. But also, when we look at it in terms of patients, not just, gym science, which there's nothing wrong with that at all, but you're not always dealing with sick people, right? And sick people often need a little bit more help. And they might drop into hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. They might drop into low blood pressure. And so you have to take all of this into account. And so when you're looking at sick population, this is actually from Dr. Tubb, they found that a 10-hour window seemed to work for even clients on various medications. And I found that really interesting because if you're an integrative health practitioner, you're a doctor, you're trying to help someone, or you're a personal trainer or a nutritionist giving advice, you want to make sure that you're not harming your clients at the same time. Always the first rule is, right, do no harm, and that's what we need to live by. So I found this study to be super interesting, but now let me share with you the results. And why are the results great? It's because you don't always need to do the super long fast. You can do that once a week. You can do that once a quarter. We talk about those, and I'll share other podcasts on that as well. But let me give you the highlights of the actual study and then break it down specifically. So a 10-hour eating window, what does that mean? It basically means you're eating for 10 hours and then you're not for 14. So again, 6 at night to 8 in the morning seems to be the easiest for most people. Is it for everyone? No, of course not. Because what if you work until 8 o'clock at night, right? I get it. I understand. So it's not going to work for everybody. But if you're working with your natural circadian rhythm, you're trying to get to bed between 9 and 10 p.m. or somewhere around that hour, you're stopping eating 3 to 4 hours before bed, because the more hours you stop before going to bed, typically the higher HRV, the deeper your deep sleep, drop in body temperature, all improvements in sleep metrics, right? So all of those things are great. I mean, even if you can go further back, it works even better. But realistically, most people aren't going to stop eating at 4 p.m. every day. They're just not. I have to be realistic in my practice as well. So what it means is then you can eat between 8 in the morning, 4 hours till noon, right? And then we go another 6 hours, and that's 10 hours a day. So you're eating from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 at night. So it's really not that challenging. You can have breakfast, you can have lunch, you can have dinner, and I've got lots of podcasts on those. We're not going to go through that too much here today. So here's what they found, though. Improved overall blood pressure, improved overall glucose stabilization, seemed to work best for those on medications, seemed to be the easiest to stick with for patient and client adherence. 8% caloric restrictions is what they typically found by just taking out those hours, not change. So the interesting thing about this study is that people weren't asked to do anything except restrict their eating to 10 hours. That was it. That was literally it. And they got an improvement, reduction in non-fatty liver, improved their cardiovascular outcomes, their LDL oxidized cholesterol, and much more. So a couple more notes on this. They lost body weight, which I shared before. They decreased their waist circumference. Why that matters is that the lower your waist-to-hip ratio, the better outcomes in terms of cardiovascular, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and certain types of cancer. We already talked about the benefits in balancing healthy levels of cholesterol, potential lowering of hemoglobin A1C, which is basically a marker for your glucose over essentially 90 days, and more restful sleep, which is an overall must-have number for longevity and life extension. All right, now here are the specific metrics that they gave. So this is a direct quote, and I'm going to link up the research if you want to read it for yourself. Beautiful study. It's at stephencabral.com/2672. It said, we observed significant reductions in body mass. So it was basically on average 3% weight loss. And it was on average, this was about 6 pounds to 7 pounds, it looks like, for each individual. A waist circumference ratio decrease of about 4%. Body mass index went down about 3%, which is down about 1.1 in number of units. So if you were a 25 before, you went to a 23.9, putting you right within that healthy based zone. Body fat percentage was also a reduction, plus or minus, well, actually, this was 0.91% to 1%. So body fat would go from 14% down to just, let's say 13%, or, of course, 30% down to 29%, depending on wherever you might be starting. Visceral fat went down by about 0.6. Systolic and diastolic blood pressure was a difference of about 4% or -5, which is a big number. Again, if you go from 134 down to 129 for your systolic, well, you're out of that high blood pressure range. Total cholesterol dropped by about 13 points, or about 7% total in this study. LDL dropped by almost 12 points, and HDL, let's see here, this is just non-cholesterol, dropped by about 11.6%, or 11.6 points as well. So huge changes in what is called metabolic syndrome. Why do you need to know about metabolic syndrome? It is the high cholesterol, high triglycerides, high blood sugar, and it leads to all of the major risk factors for death and mortality. So it basically takes that average age that a human should live, which is absolutely, like, without doing anything special, of like 89, 90 to 100, without doing anything special, none of the stuff we talk about in high performance health, and it brings it down to that 74 years old, right, for the average individual, to 77 years old. So for men, about 74, for women, about 77. So we have to just be careful of just a few overall factors in life in terms of our metrics. Our cardiovascular disease, our blood pressure and stroke, our type 2 diabetes, and cancer. That is what we continue to control for. And a 10-hour eating window is one of those things that dramatically help. So what they found, again, just to summarize, time-restricted eating, in this case, 14-hour fast, 10 hours of eating. But 14-hour fast sounds so long, right? But it's not. 8 in the morning till 6 at night. You can do that. You can still get in 3 good meals a day. So they found reduces waist circumference, body fat percentage, and visceral fat. Again, why does that matter? Well, it helps with the cardiovascular, the blood pressure, the type 2 diabetes, and cancer. Okay, so if you can control for those, then what you're able to do is improve overall mortality outcome, right? Like, you live longer if you don't get one of those, since those are the major factors for dying at an early age. The time-restricted eating also lowers blood pressure, arthrogenic lipids, which is basically plaque buildup in the arteries that can lead to a heart attack or cardiac event, and glycated hemoglobin. Other benefits of the time-restricted eating are improvements in overall cholesterol medication, as well as blood pressure medication, which are 2 of the top medications that people use in the United States and most Western-based worlds. So why I wanted to bring this to you today, it is one more definitive study, not kind of a good study, not, like we should keep an eye on this one, see what it looks like in the future. No, this is a legitimate study that's been now proven out over the last 4 years or so that actually holds up. So the easiest thing that you can do from this, and you can do just what they did in the study. I'm not even asking you to change the foods that you're eating yet, or maybe even that you're having your clients eat yet. Just keep them within a 10-hour window. That alone led to significant changes. So if we can just maybe start the first meal at 8 o'clock or so, and end at 6, or if you can't end at 6, you need to end at 7, all right, we start at 9 a.m. And so when we look at that, though, that's the first change. You don't need to make another change before that. I tell people all the time, like, hey, what should I do for my workouts? Are you walking 7,500 to 10,000 steps a day? Because if you're not, that's all that I need you to do. Because I don't need you to get more complicated, because you're going to plateau anyway, like on any program that you're on. So once you plateau, I'll give you the next step. But for right now, let's shrink the window, okay? 14-hour intermittent fast, overnight. Now we've got the 10 hours of eating. Once you do that, now make it 3 meals a day of whatever foods that you want, whatever you're typically eating. Once you've done the 3 meals a day, after that, we'll start to refine what those actual foods are. That is the easiest and best way to add years to your life, and not just years to your life, but healthy years, increasing health span, not just the number of years you stay alive medicated. Hopefully today's show was helpful. All of the links, the study notes will be at stevencabral.com/2672. Have an amazing day. And if this show was helpful, do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.